Pod Show is produced and managed by podtalk.co.uk. I'm Mark Mason.
And I'm Susanna Hornby. Welcome to the Suffolk Pod Show. In front of me is a really, really great person. Just been talking to him for about half an hour while setting up. And I'm fascinated in what you do, loving being in your house. And there's a really lovely vibe here. So I think this is going to be a really good interview. So welcome, Iain Clayton.
Thank you.
You are a financial advisor.
I am indeed.
Yeah, okay. And that to me has so many different connotations and I don't really know what a financial advisor is. Well, I do, but can you just briefly explain what a financial advisor is?
I think the primary place to start is I do call myself a financial advisor, but what I think of myself of is more of a financial planner, which sounds like a bit of a small difference, I suppose. But fundamentally, a financial advisor is somebody who's just advising people on their finances. Generally, that tends to be looking at pensions and investments and those types of things, life insurance. And a financial planner is slightly different in that we're looking to actually build a plan for somebody to be able to achieve their goals from wherever they are at the moment to wherever they want to get to. And everybody's goals are completely different. So I try to go about it in a slightly different way from the traditional way of doing things, I guess.
Let's talk about you when you came into the world. Where do you come from?
I'm a Welshman, and actually there is a surprising amount of Welsh people around the area, which is always a welcome surprise when you see a Welsh rugby shirt or something similar.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I moved here just after COVID with my wife. My wife grew up just outside Ipswich and went to school in Ipswich, kind of around Kersey and Stoke-by-Nail in that area. We had children right at the beginning of COVID. So my first child was born in April 2020. So just as COVID was really taking hold. And we, after a short amount of time in Bristol, decided that actually we wanted to be closer to my wife's parents. So we moved up to Suffolk.
And did you know Suffolk?
I knew the inner workings of several pubs in Long Melford.
Okay.
That was about the extent of my Suffolk knowledge, really. The occasional weekend trip and travelling around the beautiful villages and such. Not an awful amount. I don't. It's one of those places. A lot of my friends and family are still in South Wales and in Bristol in the southwest. And very, very few of them have actually come to Suffolk. It's one of those places, if we were to go to the beach or go somewhere, we would always go Cornwall or Devon or West Wales. Yeah. So not many people tend to come out Suffolk way.
And they still don't particularly, which has enormous value for us when we live here because it's tranquil, it's peaceful, it's relatively safe and totally brilliant for bringing up kids.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful place. It's completely far removed from living in a city. So my wife lived in London. We lived in Bristol for 5 or 6 years prior to moving here. But yeah, pace of life, beautiful countryside. The one thing we do miss is, and I shouldn't really say this, but a West Coast beach, I suppose.
I think you're allowed. I think you're definitely allowed.
Although we did have a fantastic day in Felixstowe the other day.
It's just the colour of the water.
I did actually put a post up just saying the beautiful brown North Sea, and you just can't escape it. Really.
No, you really can't. And yeah, no, I'm with you on that, totally. You said you moved here in COVID, during COVID.
Yeah, indeed. I think when we moved towards the end of 2020, so we kind of got through the initial lockdowns and all those bits and pieces. I think we were quite lucky. My wife was on maternity and I was on furlough. So we had a new child. And we had enough space that wasn't too stressful, but actually coming up here and into the countryside and it's a bit more relaxed, yeah.
And we should say we are in the heart of Bury St Edmunds.
We are.
Just to pinpoint to our listeners where we're talking from, okay?
A stone's throw from the train station.
Yeah. And I will say too that although Suffolk is tranquil and peaceful, it has an incredible, vibrant business community and culturally fantastic. The offering that we have as a county is quite special. I just wanted to say that. Okay, so when did you get into financial planning? What's the route there?
I've got a really wide, varied background, which I won't go into sort of too much detail on, but I kind of did a degree in accounting and economics and then just sort of ventured through several different property areas. I sort of trained as a chartered surveyor many, many years ago, just as 2008 happened and the sort of economic crash, I guess, happened. But fundamentally, my journey into financial advice started around 2015. Late 2015, my father was diagnosed with cancer. And I knew he had a relationship with his financial advisor. He used to come around relatively regularly, sort of 2 or 3 times a year or something along those lines. And it basically turned out my father's cancer was terminal. And I think that obviously brings in a range of emotions family-wise, and actually what does that mean for us? He was the only breadwinner of the family. He was a surgeon, so I suppose relatively lucky that he was sort of well remunerated. But it brings a lot in if you lose the sort of primary breadwinner of the family. How does that affect my mum primarily? All the children were grown up, but we wanted to make sure that my mum had the resource to be able to sort of continue living and do all the bits and pieces that she wanted to do. And actually, I had no comprehension really of what a financial advisor did. I knew my parents met them, but I knew they kind of put plans in place, but probably limited to probably what the vast majority of the population knows about financial advice, which is probably nothing. And what was really, really, really reassuring is that basically over 20 years or whatever the amount of time was that they'd been sort of chatting and putting plans in place, what they'd done is built a really solid plan that enabled my family to have enough money, regardless of whether my dad lived a really long and fulfilling life and wanted to have the retirement that he wanted to have, or if he didn't live long enough, as he didn't, that actually his family would have enough resource to be able to continue, not have to make really sort of bad financial decisions or find ways through it. And I just found that so kind of awe-inspiring, actually, that somebody was able to make that much difference and give so much calm and peace of mind to a family at such a stressful, horrible time of their lives.
Yeah. And actually, it's the last thing you want to be talking about and worrying about when you're going through that terrible sort of grief phase as well. So he did you proud, your father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had no idea. He didn't share financial information with us. He didn't tell us we'd be okay. Not that it really affected sort of my as an adult, but I just think the confidence that, I remember trying to plan the funeral, for example, and not to make this a particularly sort of somber part of the podcast, but my mum was like thinking, I don't know how to pay for the funeral. I don't know how much we can spend on it. I don't know whether we can have an extravagant celebration or not, really. And actually just having him there, somebody you can chat to, have confidence that the money was there primarily, but actually just that the resources and the plan have been put in place to make sure that those things could happen.
And all of this was this person, this financial advisor that your father had. And so this was, as you've just said, the crux, the moment that you thought, hang on, there's something in that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And you already have an accounting and economic degree, so you have that, you're good at numbers, shall we just go there? And so that feels like a natural flow. And also having been a chartered surveyor, that brings in quite a lot, I would imagine, into being a financial planner, because you know about houses and property.
The chartered surveyor thing never actually came to fruition because I did all the qualifications, and then because of economic circumstances, all the grad schemes closed. But I've since managed large property portfolios and actually just managing people's assets, which is a relatively, it seems like a big part of what we do. But actually, it's just making sure you're making sure everything is aligned with what we're trying to achieve, and that there's a nice symmetry to that. Yeah. But I think seeing that in action just triggered something in my brain, and it sort of started me on that journey, and led me into financial advice. I digressed ever so slightly there.
So you launched... No, it's fine. That's what it's all about. So you launched into becoming a financial planner, and you started working where?
So I was very, very lucky to work at a firm in Bury St Edmunds, Abrogate Wealth, which is a fantastic firm. I'm pretty sure it'd be pretty well known around. And that was up until very recently. Mm-hmm. And then I think just having a bit of an entrepreneurial side to myself, just wanting to explore actually what the opportunities were for myself and how I could really sort of push myself further, I think, led me to starting what I started now.
And I think we should talk about that now. Tell us about FinPlanPro.
FinPlanPro is a brand new independent financial advice company in essence, but it's all based around really simple financial plans for people to basically achieve what they want. As I've already sort of discussed, really building that plan around meeting their objectives, and everybody's objectives are completely different. So it's really trying to get under the bonnet of what people are trying to achieve and really helping them get to that place. I think the traditional financial advice, or certainly the stereotype of financial advice, is that sort of salesperson who's trying to sell you an investment or sell you a pension, or basically trying to make money out of you, not necessarily do the best for you. Although I think that's less so nowadays.
Yeah, I like that you're debunking this myth of because certainly I think there was an era, let's just say in the 90s and the early noughties, where financial advisors were looked upon as, as you just said, reps, salespeople coming up to just sell you a pension. And that is not at all what you do.
No.
I mean, you can, but I'm assuming you are helping people plan strategically for the rest of their lives to be able to afford to live and to pass on what they have to their families. Tell us exactly how you work with clients.
The biggest part with financial planning, just to nip back to the previous point, the old stereotype is people got paid if they took out your product. So there was always an incentive for you to promote whatever that investment was, because that's how you got paid. Fundamentally, with FinPlanPro, I don't get paid because you take out a product. I put you in the best product possible for you using evidence-based investing and those types of things, which it sounds a bit jargony, apologies. But primarily what you're paying me for is to actually help you make those decisions, put that plan in place and get you to your goal, not just say, I've got X amount of money, I want to put it into an investment. That's a small cog. Mm-hmm. So that's quite an important clarification to make. And I guess the sort of financial planning process really is meeting a client, trying to get a feel for what they're trying to achieve, express who I am and express how I go about things, because I think it's quite a personal relationship. I think you don't want to deal with somebody who you just don't believe or you don't get on with or you don't trust. Trust is a sort of major word in the industry, I guess. But it's building that bit of confidence with them, understanding them. And if they kind of like the sound of what you're speaking to them about, and a lot of it's just asking questions, in all honesty. I don't want to talk at somebody, although it appears today that I do like to talk.
That is the purpose.
A little bit too much. But it's actually letting them talk, letting them tell you what their concerns are, what their frustrations are, where they want to get to, why they've struggled to achieve this in the past, all those types of questions. Once that's all out in the open, and that's ever evolving, the conversation always takes place. Fundamentally, we want to make sure that every single person has really strong foundations to their finances. And that's pretty much a similar basic framework that I'll use with nearly every client. And it's making sure we've got this strong foundations. So the foundation points are really basic, making sure people have got enough emergency funds, got enough cash available for any type of emergency, whether it's a dishwasher breaking or being unemployed or being made redundant or something along those lines.
I'm going to stop you there, because I think when we hear about this, it sounds like the most sensible thing to do. Everybody does it. But who is financial planning for? And do you have to have a certain amount of money to be eligible to be financially advised?
That's it. I suppose it's a bit of a hot topic, in all honesty. So the second point first, you don't need a certain amount of money to receive financial advice. I would say there's a proportion of financial advisors who fundamentally you potentially make more money from wealthier clients. So they will tend to deal with people in later stages of life, people who fundamentally just have more assets, have more cash, less outgoings. The traditional person in their 30s or 40s, the small children, is anybody listening who's in that situation, the situation
like
that I'm in, you just don't have lots of disposable income. Because whatever is, there's always another bill going out. There's kids, there's school fees, mortgages, all those different things are going out. Financial advice should be available to everybody. 8% of people take financial advice as adults in the UK. 92% of people don't. And that's, I think, is quite a terrifying statistic. I'll throw one more statistic out there. I think 77% of people fail basic literacy or financial literacy tests. So they just don't know enough about just the basics. And that's not a slight on them. I don't think we have any education in this country. I don't know whether we do now, but we certainly haven't had any financial education to just give people the basics to give them a bit of confidence to make their own decisions. Yes,
that's sort of missing, isn't it? But that extraordinary important bit of life learning that you will need that could actually give you security for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I mean, I spend so much time just talking about, I don't do mortgages, but talking people through mortgages and how they work and compound interest and tax and investing and the differences between cash savings and investing and those different types of things, which would be extremely useful for people to have a bit of a basic understanding relatively early in life.
Well, I think that's great that you can do that. And like you say, your business is not reliant on just paying commission from selling stuff. You're actually helping the client. I love that. And that makes, I presume you're sort of on a consultancy basis, you do that. So therefore, the information is genuine and you can be trusted straight from the off. I think it's a brilliant idea. So anybody can take financial advice, as you've just mentioned, with any sort of amounts of money they may want to make secure. But there's another part to your business that you have developed. We were talking about this earlier. It's about the content.
Indeed.
And the provision of, are they courses?
Two different strands, I guess.
Okay.
I think, I think the modern world is a content-based world, isn't it? I think people spend so much time on all types of social media or YouTube or listening to podcasts. So it seems only right to be able to put as much information out into that sphere as possible. So everything I put out generally is just informative. I would never give people sort of financial advice or anything on any sort of video or audio, but it's just giving them basic tips. All the basic tips that were kind of touched on initially, really just giving them a bit of awareness about the things they should be aware of, not making huge mistakes. To sort of add to that as well, that's just kind of the informational side. What I've tried to build is going back to the 92% of people who don't take any sort of financial advice, knowing that 3/4 of those people probably don't have the highest level of financial literacy. And that's not, as I say, that's not a slight. What I wanted to do was create something that whereby I can almost give them the framework to make sure they're ticking the boxes, covering all the bases that they need to, that they wouldn't necessarily know that they needed to, because before they would have had to speak to a financial advisor. And again, there's all those sort of misconceptions with financial advisors. You need to have lots of money. You need to be wealthy. You need to have lots of spare income. You don't know who to trust. You feel like they're going to sell you something. A lot of people think, actually, I can just do this myself. And actually, a lot of the stuff you can just do yourself. But I think it's so useful to have a guide or a framework there to make sure that, almost like a checkbox exercise, really. For example, I know you spoke to Nicola from Ellison's recently about wills and powers of attorney. I think there's so much lack of knowledge there. So we make sure that all our clients have a will in place because of the importance of it, and also powers of attorney. And that's people, some just little areas of expertise that I know helps people that they wouldn't necessarily think of.
They're not courses then? Is that what we're talking about here? They are not learning without the pressure I've got here?
No. So we have, there's one course live and ready, and that's based around basic pension information, essentially. And what that does is, I think probably 7 or 8 people out of 10 that I speak to initially, their first query is always about pensions. It's one of the few investments that everybody, more or less everybody, has. They don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to improve it. They don't know if they should do anything with it fundamentally. So I've kind of built a really basic framework, a video course, which kind of guides them through a process of understanding what they've got, making sure they're aware of what they've got, because people lose pensions and lose track of them and don't know where they are, and guide them on that journey, finding out, understanding what type of pension it is, whether there's any potential to consolidate those pensions into one pension to keep it simple, and then understanding actually the underlying investments in really simplistic language, but understanding what a pension is, where it's invested, and how you could improve those investments to suit your objectives, whether that's retiring early or just having a fantastic retirement when you do retire. So just making really simple changes without giving any advice, but fundamentally just laying out a framework of guidance that people can use themselves.
Yeah. And just so much more accessible. They can look and learn at their own speed and pace. And I think you can get to know you too through these. And I'm looking across your kitchen here, and you've got a fantastic piece of equipment that I've just pointed at. And that's all part of what you're kind of gaining in on the tech and really set up your own sort of home studio.
There is actually a studio set up in the garage as well. So I do spend an inordinate amount of time very inefficiently editing videos and recording videos. And I just, as I say, I think it's such a vital part of getting that message across to people, making them aware of who you are and how you can help them. Myself, I'm 41. When I speak to my friends and my peer group and the people who I sort of spend time with, they're all in a similar situation to me. And it's actually, how can I use my experience to put something in place to help all those people and, using tech and all that sort of stuff. And video is exactly what they use. So that's exactly what I would use.
Exactly that. I'm going to steer away slightly from the financial planning world now, and we want to know a bit more about you. Well, we're sitting in this house. You've already talked about that, and you've got young children. You're running a business, and how do you balance all of that? Because we know how difficult it is to run your own business. So do many people listening, and you've got a young family. Go.
The business is an afterthought, unfortunately. I think primarily I'm a father fundamentally and a husband. As I say, my wife Chloe's from Suffolk, got 2 children who, just to add a bit of complexity, and were both born deaf. I know we sort of mentioned that previously. They're 5 and 2, so that keeps us on our toes. There's a slight irony and symmetry, I guess, that my father was actually a ENT, ear, nose and throat surgeon.
Really?
Before he passed away. Never met his grandchildren, so he looked after people with hearing loss all through his professional life, and now I've kind of weirdly taken on the mantle and look after hard of hearing people in my family.
You mentioned there was a gene.
I think the gene is called Connexin 26 or something like that. I would have got that wrong, but both my wife and I carry it. I think the chances of carrying it are something like 1 in 100. So lots of people carry this gene. If 2 people who both have the gene have a child, then there's basically a 1 in 4 chance that the child could have hearing loss. So as we said earlier, really, both my children hit the jackpot and got that one out for both times.
Yeah. But I think the technology now for deaf people has developed enormously over the last 5 to 10 years. You and your wife are learning BSL?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I'm nearly finished my BSL level 1 now. My wife's done level 2. I think as it's all we've ever known, in all honesty. But I've never had a child who hasn't worn hearing aids from the age of a month or 2, whatever they were when they had their hearing aids. You know, you're right. I think the support is remarkable, actually. And I think regardless of what ailments or disabilities or what anybody is aware of, there's an amazing amount, and we sort of mentioned this before, didn't we? But there's an amazing amount of people who are providing support that the general population has no idea about. And you have to be so thankful for those people, because they're the ones you kind of, when we had our daughter, we didn't really know anything about having a deaf child, what that meant, what their opportunities were. But actually, we dealt with the charity, the National Deaf Children's Society, and they were an amazing help. Since we've moved to Suffolk, we've also become part of the West Suffolk Deaf Children's Society. So my wife is a trustee there, so we do quite a lot of fundraising and events for them. And actually, part of my business going forward, I really want to sort of give back. In essence, it's a primary part of our lives. My children will be deaf forever; they will always have this. So I want my business to help people. So there will always be I'm not sure exactly whether it'll be a sort of a proportion of profit or something regularly that goes out, but we'll definitely be sort of
contributing.
Yeah, building a relationship with those charities to really help.
So what about holidays and things? Got any time for those?
Not as much as we used to. No, we're extremely lucky. My wife and I love travel, tend to do quite nice holidays. In honesty, we haven't been anywhere this year. I suppose our most regular spot would be North Wales.
Of course. Whereabouts in North Wales?
So we, in fact, my wife's parents have a house just outside, or in between Barmouth and Harlech, which is kind of on the edge of Snowdonia.
Inland?
It's about a mile inland, so you can see the sea, but it's in the mountains. So that's fantastic, and the beaches are incredible. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, and good friends of ours moved out to Australia a couple of years ago, so we're actually going out there for 3 or 4 weeks over Christmas this year.
Lovely! Oh, the right time to go as well.
Yeah, exactly, and it's making the most of those opportunities before the kids go to school, and
absolutely
showing them. I think we're keen advocates for our children to explore the world and actually see the opportunity that's out there. So where we can, although it's not easy, try and show them as much as we possibly can.
Exactly, and planning that in financially is very important, which you've clearly done.
Indeed. Well, it's all back to that basic budgeting point, I think. It means there's no other holidays for the rest of the year, but it's exciting.
Well, Iain, it's been absolutely brilliant to talk to you. So I just want to tell our listeners how they can get hold of you and have those important conversations.
So Obvious best way is to go to the website, which is FinPlanPro.com, FinPlanPro.com.
Lovely. And we need to talk about those social medias. TikTok,
Instagram.
Yeah, you see, that's
YouTube.
brave. That's brave. Go on, tell me about your following.
It's a meager following, but we've had some videos which have done some good views, and fundamentally, if anything good comes out of those, brilliant. But it's really just giving knowledge to people who are looking for it in the most weird and wonderful ways.
Absolutely. And YouTube?
Indeed, I've only sort of 2 or 3 videos up at the moment, but that's a project that'll be sort of videos going out every week now.
Yeah. That's great. And that'll all be under FinPlanPro, so you can find it that way.
Yeah, or I think Iain, so IAIN, financial planner, tends to come up with most of the links. Yeah, but yeah. Just as I say, for me, it's a good way to just give people really basic information and knowledge out there.
Well, we wish you every success for that, and we will follow you closely, and I'm sure we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much for being with us.
That's very kind. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for listening to the Suffolk Pod Show. Find us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, or you can visit our website, podtalk.co.uk. And here's our disclaimer.
The Suffolk Pod Show will not be held responsible for any omissions or errors in its podcast.
The Suffolk Pod Show is produced purely for entertainment purposes. Views and opinions are that of our own or that of our guests.